we're going to be confronted with some difficult decisions. To kind of set the stage for it, in 2010, the budget was 700, if we use constant dollars, let's say 2018 dollars. In 2010, the budget was at $794 billion. And by 2015, using the same constant dollars, it was down to 586. Now, that's a drop of 24% is the best way to look at that. So that's where we found ourselves. And so consequently, we made a decision for fiscal year 18 to go up to 700 billion, fiscal year 19 up to 716 billion. And the strategy, or the agreement, I should say, both of you have read that commission report, and you remember in that report they talked about the necessity of increasing a minimum increase of 3 to 5% over inflation. Now, that's what everyone agreed on. That's what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff agreed on. That's what the secretary agreed on. Now, when the president came out with the original budget, it was $733 billion for the fiscal year 20. Well, if you do the math on this thing and you go from 716 to 733, the increase is 2.1%, which is actually below the amount that everyone has been prescribing and saying is going to be necessary to meet the competition. It's a different competition that we've ever had before, at least in my opinion. I would like to ask both of you to comment on that, if you consider in light of that, the 733 to be a floor as opposed to a ceiling. What do you think, General?
Senator, thank you for the question. The 733 figure was arrived at by the department carefully looking at the requirements of the National Defense Strategy. It reflects our best projection of a strategy-informed budget. We recognize that there could have been a higher number, as you said, the 3 to 5%, but we also recognize that the department exists within a larger government, and puts and trades there are just a natural part of the process. Anything below 733 would increase risk, and that risk would be manifested across the force. We are in the process now, very carefully across the department, examining the details of what the nature of that risk would be, who would it be imposed upon, and the nature of it.
Good, good. General Clark?
Senator, I associate myself with General McKenzie's remarks and would state that the sustained and predictable, but then the key is the adequate funding that is required by the department. And once looked upon, and if confirmed for SOCOM, we have to look at specifically what that means to SOCOM's budget and where that risk would be assumed, whether it's in readiness, whether or not it is in technologies required, or whether it is in what we're doing forward.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. In my opening statement, we talked about our peer competitors, Russia and China. And it's difficult for those of us on this side of the table, when we're talking to groups outside of government, to explain to them that in some cases, both China and Russia have things that we don't have. I have a long list of things, including statements on our artillery. We are outgunned, outranged. And so we have problems now that I don't think we had before. And now from SOCOM's perspective, what's the best way you think to confront these problems that we have not experienced before?
Senator, you talked about the things we don't have.
Yeah.
What I would qualify as the things that we do have that Russia and China don't have. We do have some asymmetric advantages that we have looked at, and you're familiar with our joint military net assessment. The other thing that we have, Senator, that those two countries don't have is allies and partners. And our position around the world, specifically with SOCOM, with our special operations that are forward, do provide us that advantage.
Yeah, that's good. And General McKenzie, there's been a lot of talk about the S-400 and the threat to the United States and a coalition force in Syria. What's your thought about that, evaluating that, and how much of a threat that does pose?
Senator, the S-400, if once activated, will increase the threat to our forces and those of our coalition partners flying over Syria. There will be a manifest difference in the capabilities of the system, though, depending on whether it's manned by the Syrians or the Russians, and we're still working to figure out how that's actually going to be executed.
Yeah, thank you. Senator Reed.